We will start again with Helston, the Whiffler, 2025-1762, and we have Matthew Blackie presenting.
All right, thanks, Caroline. Okay, so we have a full planning application for the Whiffler on Boundary Road in Helston. So the Whiffler is a JD Wetherspoons public house, and it's a full planning application for alterations to the existing beer garden located to the front of the site, additional windows, and the provision of additional parking to the rear of the site. The reasons for the application coming to Planning Committee is due to concerns by the local ward members on highway safety, and officers are recommending approval for the application. Okay, so just to start off with some site context. So here is the main building for the Whiffler. This is the beer garden to the front of the Whiffler that fronts onto Boundary Road, and down the side here and within here itself is existing car parking, and then you've also got a patch of green space that is situated here. And just to give it some wider site context, so this is the Whiffler in the red box here. It is situated on City View Road, and it is in an area that can be characterised by both residential and commercial uses. So you've got commercial uses such as McDonald's and Asda, but then along City View Road and also Hercules Road and Coronation Road, there is a number of residential properties. Okay, so I just want to bring your attention to an application that was submitted alongside the full planning application and was determined in September this year. So this was for a lawful development certificate, and the lawful development certificate was for the change of use from a car park to an external beer garden. So just to give some context, so the part here in red, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, was used as car parking for the Whiffler, and during the COVID pandemic itself, there was a relaxation in rules for public houses to create external beer gardens to help with the growth of the economy. So as part of those regulations, the car park was changed to an external beer garden, and since then it has remained as an external beer garden. As a consequence, there was a loss of parking spaces for the Whiffler, and that has had an impact upon highways safety along City View Road. So there has been incidences since the loss of that car parking where there has been a number of users of the Whiffler sort of parking along and within the wider area, which has had an impact upon local residents, and that is duly noted. So in terms of the lawful development certificate, so the lawful development certificate sought to confirm that no planning permission was required for the change of use from a car park to an external beer garden. And I'm just going to summarise the conclusions of the lawful development certificate, because that does have a key consideration within the decision-making process for the current application. So it's really important to understand how we consider whether a change of use is required or not. So there is case law which is known as the Birdall case law, and this is basically to define what is a planning unit. And there are three tests to define what is a planning unit. So as part of this, when you define what a planning unit is, if you go from one planning unit to another, that is where there may potentially be a material change of use. And in this case, the test was to understand whether the change of use from a car park to an external beer garden was considered as a material change of use. So just to sort of set out what the three tests are, the first one, and the test reads, if it is possible to recognise a single main purpose of the use of which the land to which secondary activities are incidental or ancillary, the whole unit of occupation should be considered as a planning unit. So when it comes to public houses, uses such as car parks or external beer gardens, they're considered as secondary uses that are incidental and ancillary to a public house. So for this reason, against the first test, we do consider the car park and the beer garden to be incidental and ancillary uses. So therefore, the site is considered as one singular planning unit. The next one is it may be equally apt to consider the whole unit of occupation, even though the occupier carries on a variety of activities, and it's not possible to say that one is incidental or ancillary to another. So the second test recognises that there may be a variety of activities associated with a planning unit, but it can still be considered as a singular planning unit. So in this instance, although car parking, external beer garden are maybe different activities, they are still associated with a public house, and so therefore the site is still considered a singular planning unit, and therefore it meets the second test. And then finally, the third test, it reads as, where within a single unit of occupation, two or more physically separate and distinct areas are occupied for substantially different and unrelated purposes, each area should be considered a separate unit. So when it comes to the third test, okay, so what we said was based upon the information that was submitted to us, there is no physically separate and distinct areas that operate substantially different and for unrelated purposes, given that a beer garden and car park area are considered as associated uses, and so for that reason it was still considered a singular planning unit. So therefore the WIFLA is considered as one singular planning unit, and so for that reason the change of use from a car park to a beer garden was not considered to be a material change of use, and the planning history had no restrictive conditions on there to prevent the change of use of a car park to another associated use with the public house. So therefore no planning permission was required for that change of use, and the lawful development certificate was approved in September. Okay, so bringing you on to the full application again and the proposed site block plan. So I'm going to run each part in more detail as the presentation goes on, but just to sort of highlight the areas that are going to be discussed and considered. So this is the beer garden to the front. When we come inside of the WIFLA, so at the moment this area here is the existing toilets, and they are going to be relocated, and there's going to be additional seating internally. And then there is an existing door here that's going to be removed and replaced with two additional windows. And then finally, so as noted previously, this is the existing car park, and there are plans to extend the car park to the rear here. So going into detail, so starting with the front beer garden. So this is one of the covered outdoor areas here that is highlighted. And so this is the elevation drawings for the proposed covered area. And these are just some design details associated with that covered area. The next part, so this is another covered area here. And then these are the elevations associated with it. And then this is the roof plan. And then the final covered area, which is situated here. These are the associated elevations. And then these are some of the associated design features for the covered area. There's also going to be an accessible ramp. So this is actually a raised platform, and there's going to be an accessible ramp to allow for accessibility onto the raised platform. And then these are just some details, so floor plans and elevations associated. So this is where the ramp is coming up onto the raised platform. And then there's also going to be new fencing and a new gate. So the new gate is going to be installed here. And then there's going to be new railing fencing that fronts onto Boundary Road. So these are the elevations for the gate and associated fencing. And then this is the elevations for the railing that fronts onto Boundary Road. So I just want to bring you to the internal area. So as mentioned that there is, so this area as existing is toilet spaces or a toilet area. These are going to be relocated to elsewhere within the pub. That does not require planning permission because that's not considered to be a material change of use, and as it's an internal change only. And then there is a door that is situated here, and the plan is to brick that up and then to install 2 new windows. And then these are just the elevation drawings just to show the plans for bricking up the door and the installation of the 2 new windows. Okay, so to bring you on to the external car park. So as mentioned previously, there has been concerns raised by the loss of the car parking to the front of the site, which is now lawfully confirmed to be a beer garden. And Wetherspoons are seeking to have an extension to the existing car park to the rear of the site. So as part of the extension, there would be the creation of 16 new spaces. So Norfolk County Council Highways were consulted to assess the proposed rear extension to the car park and to confirm whether the proposed parking provision that is proposed is to be acceptable. So when it comes to working out when it comes to calculating how much parking and minimum parking spaces are required, so you have to look at what are the proposed covers associated as part of the development. So the proposed covers include the increase in tables with the external seated area and also the new seated area internally. But what I would need to stress is that when it comes to working out the parking spaces, we can't count the external seated area. And the reason for this is because the tables that are outside are movable, so they're not considered as operational development, so you're able to remove those tables, and so for that reason we're not able to count the external area towards the covers. So Norfolk County Council's highways parking standard guidelines are very clear that when it comes to working out how much parking is provided for public houses, it states that for every 5 square metres of public area that is created, there needs to be 1 parking space provided. So the only area that we are able to count is the internal area, so where the toilets are as existing, which is going to become new seated area. So that area itself is 55 square metres in terms of floor space, so therefore 11 parking spaces at minimum are required to accommodate for that new seated area. I also just want to make it clear that you cannot look at what is the existing provision. So you can't look at what are the existing total covers, and you can't also look at the total car parking area. You have to, when it comes to looking at the minimum parking that is required, you have to look at the new areas that are being created, and you can only look at the internal area. So as you can see, this is where the proposed car park is going to be. We've also got appropriate tree mitigation in place. So there are 3 individual trees here, and due to the root protection areas, in order to enable the protection of these trees and to retain them, there's going to be appropriate tree work to ensure, and this can be secured via a planning condition. Okay, so I just want to bring a CGI image. So this is just to give you a representation on what the beer garden could potentially look like, and also you can see the parking to the rear. So just some...
where's the entrance and exit?
I was coming to that, I'm gonna do it, yeah. Okay, so just to run through some site photos. So this is the front of the Whiffler, and this is the existing beer garden, and this is looking onto it from Boundary Road. And then this is as you come into City View Road, and you can see the existing car parking area here. And then this is sort of standing within the car parking area, looking down to Boundary Road. This is the access, so this provides vehicular entry and exit for the site. So this is access from City View Road. And then this is just looking, so this is looking onto the Whiffler building. This is looking from the vehicular access into the existing car parking area. And then this is a shot taken further up from City View Road, looking down to Boundary Road and the back of the Whiffler. And just to say that this is the existing door that will be blocked up with 2 new windows proposed on that wall. This is the area that is proposed to become the new external car parking area. And you can see these are the trees that are proposed for retention. And then this is just to show the current routes, and I am standing in the root protection area for those trees. And then this is at the top of the car park, of the area for the proposed car park. Looking down, this is the existing one, and then obviously access would be provided through here. Okay, so in summary, we are going to be recommending approval for the application. We do fully understand the concerns by local residents, and these have been taken into consideration by the local planning authority and the local highways authority. But due to the rules, the regulation and policy around what is and is not allowed and what can be taken into consideration, the proposed development is considered to be meeting minimum parking standards, and there's actually considered to be a surplus with an additional 5 spaces. Given the lawful development certificate has confirmed that you can have a change of use between a car parking area and a beer garden, because they are associated uses with a public house, and that does not require a change of use. As part of the conditions that have been recommended, we would be looking to impose a condition that the car parking, whether proposed and as existing, would remain as a car park at all time, and there would be no ability for the change of use to even associated uses with the public house itself. So that would hopefully prevent any further changes of any car parking area to a beer garden. I just want to make you aware that there was no objections raised by any of your statutory consultees. So this does include Norfolk County Council Highways, environmental quality, and there was also no objection to the proposed tree works and also the submitted ecology, biodiversity net gain. The application is not report by the requirements of nutrient neutrality or GIRAMs. So in summary, we are recommending approval, and as the development is considered to be a significant benefit in helping to hopefully alleviate the concerns with highways by local residents, and we also consider that the use of the conditions will help with providing greater control for the Whiffler going forward by the local planning authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Does the committee wish anything clarified from Matthew? No?
No, well, just quick. So are there 2 entrances? There's a hashed area up there, and there's another one quite near Boundary Road.
Yeah, so this is pedestrian access here. So, and then this is the vehicular access. Yeah.
Yeah, look, if we approve this application, is there any idea whether highways are going to do a double yellow line all the way down City View Road, round Hercules and round Coronation?
Yeah, so I have spoken to highways about some potential mitigations. So at the moment, there are no plans for double yellow lines, and I just want to also make it clear that yellow lines are a separate matter outside of the planning process. So even if there was an application made to Norfolk County Council Highways for double yellow lines being installed, there is no guarantees that that would even be accepted. And there is plans for off-site highways works through the introduction of H-bars. So that would be secured via a Section 278 off-site highways agreement that Wetherspoons has committed to. And this is just to help with stop cars from trying to park and blocking driveways.
Can I just add, sorry, Councillor Johnson, in terms of the use of double yellows, that can be good and bad for existing residents around putting double yellows across roads where residents may be parking. So it's not necessarily the solution, the answer to that. The H-bars that Matthew's referred to just means that it prevents someone parking in front of your driveway. So that would be, a good solution to that in terms of assisting local residents from being blocked in.
Hi, yeah, I've just got a question about the parking area on the plans. Some of it looks as though it's tarmac surface and some of it looks as though it might be gravel. Is that correct? So, and the other thing is, will then all of the parking bays be really clearly delineated? There should be 43, I think, in total, but it would be helpful if it was very clear where all those parking bays actually are.
Okay, I'm just going to go back to another site plan just to help just showcase it a bit better. So at the moment, this is existing tarmac for the car park, and then there is some existing gravel for the existing car park as well. And then the car park, the proposed car parking area will be gravel, and the reason being is because of the root protection area. In order to help with that, we can't have hard surfacing such as tarmac, and then it is planned. Because they have clearly marcated what the parking bays would be. If we were to approve the application, they would be expected to develop out in accordance with approved plans, and this would include clear marcation of the parking bays.
Can I just clarify on the plans it says install gravel ring parking bay markers in the existing gravel area? Right, so we'll go marked out. There's no further questions for the officer. I'm going to go to speakers.
This car parking situation obviously immediately is a big question, but obviously Whiffler have been very much involved in this, and so they are considering, presumably, are they, that in order to deal with the potential result of the new budget and the tax and the number of pubs they're going to close, they feel that this tables outside is going to be something for their business. I assume they're obviously supporting that, aren't they? Else it's come forward. So they're accepting that the parking space is going to be altered.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's a Wetherspoons pub. They are very popular. I think it's a popular pub in quite a highly populated area that's quite walkable and good bus routes. So I think you will see it is a very popular pub, and therefore they can and will sustain an expansion as they're proposing. And I think I should say as well as that, in terms of the parking requirements, I appreciate the challenges and concerns raised from residents. It is in a sustainable location, so we should take that into account in terms of the parking requirements.
Instead of repointing, it's not to tell Wetherspoons how to run their business, but I just wondered whether we could ask them to include some EV charging points in their new car parking spaces.
Yeah, so there is no policy requirement for it, and obviously the agent is here for Wetherspoons. If that is something that you'd like to see, we can have that discussion, but there is no policy requirement, so name may not be reasonable as a condition.
Right, have we all finished questions? Yeah, sure. Okay. There's nobody from the parish council speaking, so I'll go straight to objectors. We have Philip Selby and Tina Swanson-Moore. Are they here? Would you like to come to the front, please? Who's going to speak first? Okay, you have 5 minutes from when you press the right-hand button.
Can you hear me, Mother? I'm Phil Selby. I live on Cityview Road, directly opposite the Whiffler rear car park. I witnessed firsthand the hazards and problems caused by inconsiderate parking on Cityview Road and nearby. You've already, I hope, seen my detailed comments in opposition to this application. I don't wish to retread those now, only to say a few words in summation. I believe that the risks to health and safety caused by inconsiderate parking will not be remedied by the solutions proposed in the application. A broader view is required and restrictions to street parking must be implemented. In particular, street parking, at least on the stretch of City View Road between Boundary Road and Hercules Road, must be restricted to one side only. Double yellow lines are required on the residential side of City View Road, i.e. the side furthest from the Whiffler. This will be the most effective step in making the Whiffler car parking provision more attractive than the curb. Thank you.
Thank you. Swanson Hall, would you like to speak?
Hello everyone, thank you. I have lived with my partner on City View Road for nearly 5 years, and we moved there because of the mixed community. Small businesses, we have a franchise, we have the Red Cross unit, and of course a pub, which we love and is traditionally, historically the heart of the community. We also have a mix of residents. We have families, we have a lot of elderly, we have visually disabled, wheelchair users, and it's a really good mix of people. We've been active in meetings with the pub, and we are proactive in, hopefully finding a solution that's acceptable to the pub, to local residents, and to the extended community. At this time, we cannot see a way forward to support the Whiffler plans until the issue of parking has been given the priority that is needed. Health, safety and well-being extends beyond local residents. Buses and other public vehicles, delivery vans, trucks are regularly affected. Buses have had to reroute and turn around, in dangerous situations on a residential road. Quite recently that wasn't it? I think you had to do didn't you? And this is all because of access problems. Most importantly, emergency vehicles could face restrictions in life or death situations. We endorse the proposal of yellow lines, whether they're single, double, along the residential side of the road, at least keeping traffic and the congestion and certainly the parking, down to one side, which would help with the traffic congestion as well. We need the issue of parking and the congestion it causes to be given priority, to ensure that any plans have the health, safety and well-being of our home and the local communities at the forefront. If I might, if I've got a few more, an extra minute or so, just add that this is a broad view. On a personal level, I can honestly tell you that it's becoming a more dangerous place to be, because parking troubles and traffic troubles makes people crazy. And I've had people come into my personal space and in a very threatening manner on numerous occasions. And I can assure you the pub staff are brilliant. They have the cameras, and the times I've we missed a train once trying to get somebody to not park in front of the house. Their staff are great, but it's not really their fault. But people people have no consideration. And I know that that's not the pub's fault, it's people. But if we can start by addressing where people can and can't park, would be a huge help. And I know you've said that the two separate things, but really I don't know how they can be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for the speakers committee?
Which part?
Left hand. Ken, have you got the question?
I just wanted a quick question. I fully understand what you said about parking, particularly you know, in front of driveways. Now, I've lived with that in Oak Lane for years, and I can't get highways to do anything because they say there haven't been any serious enough accidents, which makes me furious. But what they have done now, as you may know, is they've put what they call H parkings. It's the white line with a line with the two H's, and they've put those in suitable places, but also particularly in front of people's drives. I just wondered if you had thought about that or if you had approached highways.
Ken, that is proposed in the document
Well,
for the residential side of the street.
I read it, but I wasn't sure exactly what it meant, you see. But anyway.
Thank you. I think just want to clarify a few points for that. One, certainly in terms of the report, Ken, paragraph 5.25 of the report does refer to those H bars that you're talking around. So what the Highways Authority are suggesting is that the H bars are utilised in front of people's properties to stop cars blocking those properties. I just want to clarify the consideration that you're having in terms of car parking. And as Matthew's picked up, you aren't here today, you can't resolve the existing parking for the existing pub. So what your consideration is today is there's a limited additional floor space being proposed, and that generates requirement for 11 parking spaces. So what we're saying to you is, what you're considering in front of you, the parking has been addressed for that. So they've addressed the direct impact of this development from the additional parking. There may be existing parking challenges, but that's an uncontrolled site, hasn't got any controls in terms of level of parking. You now can't revisit that. You can only consider what's in front of you in terms of that additional floor space. I just want to clarify the point around the traffic regulation orders that Matthew picked up. So Matthew was right. We could put a requirement on this planning permission to say you must put H bars or you must put double yellows along this road. We don't have the authority to do that because there's a separate process with Norfolk County Council, have to go through a process of that and give local residents and everyone an opportunity to comment on that, and that can be objected to, which can prevent that coming forward. So we can only ever require a traffic regulation order to be promoted. So we can say we want one to be promoted and considered. We can't require it to happen because it's not in our control to do so. So I think that's just to clarify that. It may be a good idea to have double yellows, or it may be a good idea to have it at the H bars, but that has to be part of a process that Norfolk County Council have to follow.
Thank you. You may return to your seat. Thank you. I'll just call Jamie Piper as the agent. You've got the longest walk. Anyone if you want, yeah. Mr. Piper, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. This application before you seeks to provide alterations and formalisation to the existing beer garden to the front of the Whiffler Public House, as well as the provision of additional car parking to the rear of the site and minor alterations to the public house. As is set out in your officer's report, fundamental to the consideration of these proposals is the recently obtained Certificate of Lawfulness, which confirms the existing lawful situation which this application must be assessed against. As advised, the area to the front of the public house was historically used for car parking, and due to COVID-19 restrictions where patrons were not allowed inside of it, it instead started to be used as a beer garden. This did, though, have the impact of displacing cars onto the surrounding streets. JD Wetherspoons always seek to be a good neighbour, with many of their venues being in residential locations, and in recognising these local concerns have brought these application proposals forward, which fundamentally seek to replace a significant proportion of the car parking spaces that have been lost. The Certificate of Lawfulness that was granted confirms that the use of the front car park area as a beer garden does not require planning permission, and therefore, whilst my client is not doing anything unlawful, they do nevertheless wish to bring these proposals forward to address concerns raised by locals. The proposed beer garden area has been sympathetically designed and will provide a more attractive environment to the existing arrangements, which were installed without significant investment in response to the COVID restrictions. These new proposals will have a greater degree of permanence and be of higher quality. In addition to the additional car parking spaces, although not required by highway officers, if the LPA is minded to grant planning permission, my client has agreed to fund the painting of H-bars on the highway to discourage street parking in front of residents' driveways, as they have requested. This hopefully providing further demonstration that my client is wishing to be a good neighbour and limit the impact of their public house, which they have run for many years and which provides an important community facility. As confirmed in your officer's report, the new car parking to the rear of the site has been carefully designed to ensure existing trees are not impacted, with the cell web construction be used in places and being confirmed by the council's tree officer and my client's arboriculturalist to be an acceptable solution. In addition, the scheme includes an indicative planting plan which demonstrates that a 10% net gain to biodiversity is achieved, thereby offering significant environmental enhancement. It is to be noted that your highways officers raised no objection to these proposals, nor are there any other technical concerns. In summary, this application seeks to resolve concerns raised by local residents towards an existing lawful situation through the provision of additional car parking. The investment in the site, including the formalisation of the beer garden to the front, will ensure the pub remains an attractive venue and help support its long-term viability, as well as minimising localised disruption on the highways network. By maintaining the status quo, no additional parking will be delivered and residents' concerns will go unanswered. It is therefore respectfully requested, in accordance with your officer's recommendation, that planning permission be granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee got any questions? I have a few questions. Bear with me. One, is the garden at the rear going to be used as a beer garden as well?
Yes, there's an existing grass area which you can see on the plan there, which has got existing tables on, so that would remain operational.
Will remain as a beer garden? Yeah. Okay. The car parking spaces from 11 to 19 against the road, is there going to be, you've got lovely fences at the front, are you going to extend the fences around the back to make sure that people don't drive over the path to get into the car park? I do worry about pedestrians walking down there.
Would your officer mind just highlighting on the plan with his cursor where we're talking about here? So, yes, we can put boundary treatment along there. I think it's a metal railing, but happy to accept a condition to agree that detail.
A metal railing? Do you mean a fence? Or
Well,
just something?
I think if we can agree to pick that up with your officers, I don't have the plans in front of me, but we're happy to agree a detail to prevent that cars exiting over that verge.
The other question I have is re-deliveries. I've noticed in the past there has been big delivery trucks parked on the corner of the road, of Coronation Road and City View. Where is your delivery space for trucks to come in?
There is room within the car park area. You can see there's a hatched area there, and the doors that you can see is kind of a service access into the site. So deliveries can take place within the site.
So if a delivery truck is in there, how are cars going to get in the car park?
The delivery times can be controlled by the pub, so they would ordinarily try and avoid times when the pub's busy.
Okay, I might add that as a condition. Okay. I think that's all I had. Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay, thank you. You can return to your seat.
Thank you.
Right, I'd like to call the local members, Councillor Sheila Gurney and Councillor Simon Jones. Councillors, you know the procedure, you have 5 minutes each.
Good afternoon, councillors, planning committee, members of the public, visitors. This application is long overdue and local members have been trying to negotiate with Wetherspoons for a number of years now to resolve this abhorrent mess that has been created, particularly with parking. Vehicle accidents, blockages, car parking, drives in gateways and neighbour disturbance and intolerance. There has been much lobbying, dialogue, meetings and historically, but not so recently, with the applicants. And I'm really disappointed because I thought this might well and truly sort out the parking problems. While supportive of business development, economic growth, which generates more local jobs and local spend, there remains many dangerous issues with regards to the parking capacity. Increased spaces are welcome, but we are back to pre-COVID because the Bear Garden has taken away at least 20 car parking spaces, which have not been increased and complemented by the Backland development car park space. The discussions I have had in my capacity as a Norfolk County Councillor with officers of the county highways indeed are disappointing, to the effect that I even offered to meet the highways officer on site to try and point out some of the issues that were occurring at peak times, but this was regrettably declined. Paragraph 4.1 and 4.2 demonstrate councillors' concerns. We need more stringent highways enforcement to overcome the parking issues, which will undoubtedly still happen regardless of this increased car parking capacity. People will still park on the roads because there will be more covers, more people and more spaces, and it is appalling that we cannot take into consideration the development of at least 42 covers in the Bear Garden space, which appear irrelevant to the parking but will increase the number of punters using the pub. The offer by the applicant to pay for H-bars is simply not good enough and does not address the issues created because, as I read here, key rules advisory, they are not legally binding. H-bars are for guidance only and have no legal standing on their own. They serve to make drivers more aware of access issues. What we need there is double yellow lines. I have campaigned for them and I have been told there is sufficient funds from NCC to fund them, and I should lobby the developer, the pub owner, to pay for double yellow lines and a road traffic order instead of pointless H-bars, as I said, which have no legal standing according to my internet research. Condition number 5 needs to be renegotiated in view of the outside covers not being considered, and despite NCC's misguided response, needs to implement double yellow lines via a road traffic order, as I have said, paid for by the applicant and not by the council taxpayers of Norfolk or Helsden. The current highways proposals are weak, unenforceable and basically, in my view, a waste of time. Please help me and my fellow councillors by getting the right road traffic controls in place to prevent this happening. This is absolutely diabolical and disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to put a bit of emotional colour on this. You know, we've listened to the very dry planning laws and everything, and unfortunately, that there is probably going to be a death. I have to say that. This parking situation is incredibly dangerous. Since 2019, when the front car park was closed, it has become a war zone. And I don't use that statement lightly, but there was an accident just 2 nights ago. Some people came out of the pub, got in their van, very drunk, drove up the road, crashed through a wall, just missed somebody standing on the pavement. The bricks from the wall flew and hit the house and just missed a child's bedroom window. This is the sort of thing that's going on down there. And the people and the residents of Helsdon have been let down by the authorities. The police don't do enough, and we keep speaking to them. You know, they don't go in there and pick up the drink drivers, which there are many of coming out of the pub. I mean, I don't know why we're even talking about car parking spaces for a pub, because it just seems inappropriate that people are going in there and drinking after driving, or driving and drinking. So I would urge the councillors, we certainly need to put more pressure on Wetherspoons and say, we want a much better traffic management plan, whether that includes bumps in the roads to slow everybody down, whether it includes double yellow lines. Somebody needs to step up and pay for this. This is one of Wetherspoon's most profitable pubs. I have that on good authority in the whole of the country, and they can afford to pay for something a lot better than what they're doing. So I would urge you to if those conditions can't be put on, then I would ask you to refuse it. Thank you.
Any questions for Joe?
Do the parish have any idea of what a TRO would cost to implement double yellow lines, please? It's very difficult. I have inquired about it, and I was told that even to get a TRO on the number of roads that we need around there, because it's about 4 roads and a crossroads, Coronation Road, Hercules Road, City View Road. I think we were looking in excess of 20,000 by the time we'd finished the whole project. I think the actual TRO is about 8.5, and then you've got all the lineage work, but you've got all the consultation work, public. I know the public would wholeheartedly support it. I'm constantly pressurised into moving it forward. It's not happening at highways, I'm afraid. As I mentioned in my commentary, I think Wetherspoons should review these H bars. They're going to pay for them, yeah, but an ordinary member of the public can apply for them and pay for them themselves.
Anybody else? No? Would you like to return to your seats, please?
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Tracy to come in on this one.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, and I'm absolutely sympathetic to some of the challenges that the local members have raised. And unfortunately, we do have to bring it back to planning requirements, so I do apologise for that. As I've said previously, this sounds like there's clearly some challenges with the operation of the pub, but the members of the committee cannot consider the whole pub and its historic kind of challenges today. What is for consideration is the impact of the expansion, the requirement under the standards for additional 11 parking spaces. Some of those wider requirements in terms of being requested in terms of whether or not we can have double lines, etc., they are under separate legislation, separate processes, and that's not something this committee has any jurisdiction to control. So I think we can appreciate there are those challenges, but you aren't able to make decisions in terms of affecting the change to that today. I know Matthew's been talking to the highways officers. I'm certainly happy to go and have those conversations with the highways team, but obviously it's their programme, their funding and their processes in terms of whether or not those double yellows, H bars, etc. can be promoted and brought forward. Thank you.
Okay, I am slightly conflicted on this one because I do really sympathise with the residents on that road, with the parking, but then if we don't approve this, we're not going to get the extra parking to get the cars off the road. Does anybody want to chip in on this one? Peter?
Yeah, I concur really with what you say, Chair. We have to make a decision on what's in front of us, not the whole wish list. shall I say, of what is required. Just have to go on what we've got in front of us today. Maybe make some recommendations, perhaps, if we were to approve it. I think that's about all we can do, really.
But Ken first, then Joe, and then Eleanor.
The credit. Yes, I understand exactly what Tracy has said, but could we, in the condition, word it so that the pressure was put on Riffler, or in some way put a pressure on dealing with what is obviously a very serious situation? I agree with what Peter has just said. I mean, it isn't part of the planning application about yellow lines and these hub things. Is there some way we could tighten up? It's condition 5, isn't it? It says highway improvements off-site. Could that be sort of tightened up or put some pressure on somebody? It's on. It's off-site.
Apologies, I'm just checking the proposed condition from the Highway Authority, because that condition does include the requirements in terms of the H-bars, but it's not been nailed down. I don't think it's very specific yet. So can I just check the condition, because it may be that condition, as it's currently worded, may give enough flexibility to explore what those options look like, either H-bars, double yellows, etc. So yeah, if you want to carry on, I will certainly come back to you. We're just going to check what the proposed condition from the Highway Authority is.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask the very same question about condition 5, highway improvements off-site. If the planning office...
Do you want to wait until...
Yeah, just in case they could have a sum of money to cover any off-site highway improvements.
Well, hang on to that one. Eleanor, do you want to go in?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, my question, it was slightly similar. My comment is that highways are the statutory consultee, so we have to go by what they say. I mean, I'm not a highways engineer, so I can't give advice on this. So we have to take on board what they say, and it sounds from what we've heard that some quite detailed technical discussions have gone on between the highways engineers at Norfolk County Council and certainly the councillors and the planning officers in this case. So I guess that was kind of my question. I assume that some very technical discussions have gone on, and that means that I can't believe for a moment that yellow lines weren't discussed in the Highways Department. They must have been discussed as a potential option, and they therefore must have been turned down for very specific reasons. I think cost had been mentioned a couple of times, but actually cost doesn't seem relevant in this case. What's relevant in this case is the technicalities of what's appropriate or not appropriate in terms of highways improvements that could be made.
Correct, absolutely. So I just wanted to come back. So the Highway Authority, Matthew has had extensive conversations with the Highway Authority in terms of what some of these appropriate solutions could look like. The current proposed condition is to require a detailed scheme for those off-site highway works, and that's not specified with a drawing at the moment. But what has informed that condition is the Highway Authority advising that off-site highway improvement works to help alleviate obstructive parking for residents on City View Road between Boundary Road and Hercules Road, currently proposed in the form of H-bars along City View Road between Boundary Road and Hercules Road, which would also include a commuted sum to include future maintenance. That's the current proposal in terms of what that condition is seeking to do. I think we can Matthew has had those conversations, but I think we can probably slightly broaden that condition to agree a suitable scheme, so that there's the ability to at least have those further conversations around, is that the answer or is something else the answer?
If you're happy with that condition, yes? Yeah, can we go to the vote?
I think I'd like it to say which may include, but are not limited to, double yellow lines.
I think I'm happy to put, we can put kind of enough flexibility in there to around double yellows, H bars, so that it's got an appropriate solution without dictating what it is. That condition would be required to be discharged in consultation. That condition will need to be discharged by the local planning authority with the highway authority, because the highway authority also have to give the consent and controls in terms of the delivery of that. So yes, absolutely, that will all be done with the applicant.
With Whiffler, yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay, we have to go to the vote. The recommendation is to approve with the conditions. So we've got 1 to 8 conditions. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, approved. It's unanimous. Thank you. So if all those associated with the Helsden application want to leave, you're very welcome to. No? Okay. Right, move on to Western Longville. Application 2025-2342. And we have Bruno Fraga da Costa. Where are you, Bruno? Okay, Bruno, whenever you're ready.
So thank you, Chair. So this application, reference 2025/2342, seeks planning permission for the change of use of private swimming pool to allow occasional use by small private groups on an appointment-only basis. The site is located at Western Covert, Field Road, Western Longville, Norfolk. The pool is in a separate building adjoining the main dwelling, with its own entrance and associated facilities such as a sauna, steam room, hot tub, and exercise equipment. Access is proposed via Field Road, with parking provided within the existing curtilage using existing hard standing. The key considerations for this application are the principle of development, design and impact on the character of the area, impact on neighbour amenity, highway safety, ecology, and other issues. So the site is located in open countryside, approximately 700 meters north of Western Longville. The surrounding lanes, including Field Road and Morton Lane, are narrow, single width, and lack footpaths or street lighting. So what you see here, where my cursor is the location of the site. There's Moor Lane along here, and Field Road along here, so the main access is through here. The principle of rural business development is supported under the National Planning Policy Framework and the Greater Norwich Local Plan, provided impacts on the area, amenity and highway safety are addressed. While the proposal could generate modest employment, it remains acceptable in principle subject to these considerations. Just going to show you some of the surrounding areas in terms of Morton Lane and Field Road, in terms of the width and narrow, how narrow the lanes are. They're unclassified roads. So this is a junction between Field Road and Morton Lane. You see here where my cursor is, that's a location of this image looking south. Here, junction between Church Street and Morton Lane. So the image is located, that's where the image is located. So you can see Morton Lane here on your right hand side, and then it's Church Street to the south. It's a junction between Field Road and Church Street. Again, so Field Road to the left and Church Street to the right here. And this is the site's access. There is an existing access through Field Road, narrow lane, long narrow lane, unclassified road. So the building is existing and will remain physically unchanged. Previous concerns about domestication of the countryside have been addressed by removing unauthorized works and reverting to the original access via Field Road. Officers consider this element now acceptable. So just to explain, so the swimming pool is located within this building here. Field Lane is located along here. So the access through Field Lane goes through here. Parking provision is informal. There's some hard standing within the grounds of the dwelling and auxiliary buildings. And Morton Lane is located here along this lane here. So when I refer to works unauthorized works, I refer to a track lane that was created on previous refusals. That was created along here, and then you have some parking spaces along here. All of that has been now regularized. In terms of neighbourhood amenity, so the applicants highlight social benefits, particularly for individuals with disabilities and health conditions. The proposal retains the same number of sessions compared to previous application reference 2025-0771, which has also been refused, and includes management measures. Noise impacts are considered manageable through conditions, and environmental quality raises no objection subject to noise management plan. In terms of highways, and just to locate the site, so again, it's Morton Lane here. To the north, then we have Field Road, so the access is through Field Road. Swimming pool is located here, there's dwelling there, some hard standing along here, so there's informal parking spaces along this area. So in terms of highway safety, there's some key concerns which still remain from previous applications that have been refused. So policy TS3 and TS4, the Broadland Development Manager DPV, seeks to ensure that development proposals do not adversely impact the highway network. Paragraph 116 of the National Planning Policy Framework states that development should be prevented or refused on highway grounds if it would result in an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or if the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. Previous applications were refused on highway grounds, primarily because access via Morton Lane was deemed unsuitable for commercial use due to its poor alignments, restricted width, lack of passing provision, and limited visibility and adjacent junctions. Additional concerns related to transport sustainability were also cited. And just to note that previous application from 2025, which had the access from Field Lane, was also refused on the same basis. So in previous application 2025-0771, the Highways Officer recommended refusal due to the highway safety and sustainability issues. Norfolk County Council Highways have been consulted on this application and considered that the current proposal is still unacceptable due to its rural location and reliance on narrow, unlit roads with no footways or safe pedestrian access. The site is remote from public transport, and the nearest bus stop requires walking along hazardous carriageways with a history of serious accidents. The proposed commercial use would intensify traffic on roads with limited passing opportunities, increasing risks to highway safety, verge damage, and vehicle conflict. For these reasons, the local planning authority considers that the proposed development would generate similar traffic movements to the previous applications. Based on this evidence, the previous reasons for refusal relating to highway safety and sustainability remain relevant. Accordingly, the proposal fails to comply with policy TS3 of the Broadland Development Management DPD and paragraph 116 of the NPPF, which require that development be refused where it would result in an acceptable impact on highway safety or severe cumulative impacts on the road network. The recommendation is for refusal. So while the social benefits are acknowledged, the proposal would intensify traffic on an inadequate rural road network and conflicts with sustainable transport policies. For these reasons, the application is recommended for refusal on grounds of highway safety and transport sustainability. There is some photographs here of the swimming pool. I'll just show as well. So this is site plan showing the location of the pool, which is also are shown previously on the aerial view, and this is some images of swimming pool, internal images with the sauna, steam room, and then hot tub here on the right. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Committee, want anything clarified from Bruno? No? Okay, we'll go on to speakers. Do we have Justin Coffey here? Hi, Justin. Do you want to go to the front there, please? Okay. Again, you have 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
Good afternoon, that's loud. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Justin Cohew. I'm the Western Longville Parish Councillor, speaking on behalf of the Parish Council. For transparency, I'm also the applicant's nearest neighbour and have been for over 2 decades. But I am here today solely as the Council's representative and with the Parish Chair's approval. I want to begin by highlighting the scale of opposition to this application. I think it's evident by the row behind you. You've got parishioners here, all who actually live in the village, sitting there, and they have been sitting there for 3 hours so that they can express their opposition to this. But on top of that, you've got the planning officer recommending refusal. You've got highways objecting. You've got our district council, who can't sadly be here, he objects. And of course, the parish council objects. The planning inspectorate has already concluded that this site, Western Covert, is not suitable for commercial use in any way and highlighted the fact that this site is not accessible by any sustainable form of transport. This is the sixth attempt, and there's many years to commercialise this property. And it brings no employment and no public benefit. The Parish Council have even sought to have this dismissed as a persistent and vexatious application, though sadly it has to be considered in isolation. Certainly it is our view that it should never have been brought to committee. However, we do, as a Parish Council, have some very serious concerns. Members will be aware, familiar with the long-standing transport issue in this part of Norfolk, the missing section of the Norwich orbital route between the 1067 and the A47 and the nightmares that has caused, namely the Western Link. The Western Link application has been withdrawn after Natural England objected. The objection was due to the risks associated with the habitats of endangered Barbastell bat colony located all along the Western Valley and smack where Western Covert is. Earlier this year, the Western Link application was, The consequence of the Western Link application withdrawal is that Western Longville is now exposed to major unmitigated traffic pressure. Norfolk County Council's own modelling shows that once the A47 in Dueling is complete and the eastern roundabout is closed, through traffic in Western Longville will double. It will go to 6,000 vehicles every day going through the parish. That's 6,000 vehicles. Norfolk, the County Council has spent a year, in fact over a year, with the Parish Council, therefore developing extremely restrictive mitigation measures, wider speed controls, road narrowings, chicanes, lane priority systems and potential road pressures. And I know I can't show you documents, but they're all here as to how we're trying to stop the traffic in the parish getting any worse. Against that background, any proposed increase of private vehicle movements through our parish is simply unacceptable. Parishioners already face an onslaught of traffic that will damage the peaceful character of this village, and the application adds to this burden. Western Covert has no bus service, no public transport, and no street lighting, not even a footpath into the village. Every single booking requires private transport. It would directly undermine the County Council's current safety strategy and would be impossible to monitor or enforce. The protected Barbastell Back Colony in our parish is one of the largest maternity colonies in Europe, and Western Covert, as I said, lies at the heart of this colony. Badgers also live on site, yet no ecological assessment accompanies this application, just as it hasn't accompanied any of the previous applications. Natural England has halted a major regional highway scheme because of the bats, and approving commercial use here with no environmental evidence at all would simply not be sound. Members will also be aware that the pool was and has been used unlawfully for commercial bookings for over 20 months. Much of that after enforcement notice had been served and accompanied by a number of warnings. Approving commercial use on a site already proven difficult to regulate sets a dangerous precedent and places a wholly unreasonable burden on the authority. The long history of applications, appeals and enforcement has absorbed huge public resources, as today with our parish, and repeatedly disrupted the villages. In conclusion, Chair, members, the planning officer recommends refusal. Highways recommend refusal. Our district council recommends refusal. The parish council refuses, and also there's a massive opposition to it in the village. The inspectorate has already judged that the site is unsuitable for commercial use, and the NCC modelling now forecasts an imminent doubling of traffic through our parish. There is no public benefit, no employment potential, no transport sustainability, no enforceable controls, and no protected species assessments. For all these reasons, on behalf of Western Longville Parish Council, I strongly urge you to uphold the officer's recommendation and fully refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the Parish Council? No? Okay, thank you. You may return to your seat. Right, we have 4 objectors who wish to speak. Maria Veronese, Julie Howe, Rick Parsons and Sally Butler. Now I just want to explain, you don't have 15 minutes for the whole thing. So as you've got 4 speakers, we're going to have to cut you down to 3 minutes, 45 seconds. You do realise that, do you? Yeah, okay. Whoever wants to speak first, please press the right-hand button.
"6 years, 6 attempts to change the use of this rural family home. This year alone, 2 near identical applications. Good afternoon, Chair, members. My name is Maria Veronese. I'm speaking as a neighbour and for villagers who now know Western Covert's planning history dates better than our own birthdays. And believe me, because there have been so many, we really want to try and forget a lot of them. As you've heard, the applicant chose to disregard planning and for almost 2 years commercialised his home, opening his expensive leisure centre to the public. From dawn till late at night, we and the surrounding wildlife have had to endure extra traffic, minibuses, light pollution, noise and parties. Even now, the leisure centre is widely being advertised online. We've had strangers knocking on our doors at all hours looking for it. Just last Friday, a vehicle drove into our property, and because it looked suspicious, we took a photo. The driver said they were looking for a baptism event being held in the pool. Another vehicle going to the event then pulled up, and we were aggressively confronted for having taken the photo. This type of behaviour has been upsetting. So too have the repeated planning applications, which are becoming vexatious. They have taken up the council's time, taxpayers' money, and are wearing us all down. Over the years, many points in the applicant's submissions have been misleading. We've been told that Western Covert is a farm. It isn't. That the pool is needed for ethnic minorities. It isn't. They've claimed it's a community asset when our community rejects it and the extra traffic it creates. Now the claim is it's needed for children with special needs. Yet a late representation that the applicant and Kristen Fox have just submitted is based on a SEND organisation that does not exist and a SEND-related business that, according to Companies House, has been liquidated. In Western Longville, we too care about children. We want our children to be able to walk through our village without the fear of being hurt by increasing traffic. Planning permission should be evidence-based and not given into because of persistence and shifting emotional and emotive narratives. I have a statement from a certified Norfolk County Council pool operator confirming that there is plenty of SEND pool provision near Western Longville. I have copies here as evidence. Listing 9, that's 9 SEND pools locally. Warm, easy access pools near buses that enable people who don't drive to access them. By the way, the owner of Booton Pool says that pool booking restrictions are virtually impossible for authorities to enforce. It's also a point made by Highways. In the past, the applicant himself told me he has bigger development plans for the site. Any small approval now will be the thin edge of a very big wedge. The applicant says he's a pastor, but his actions have been less love thy neighbour and more ignore and upset the whole village. Please support your planning team and our community. Please refuse this application fully and finally. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next speaker, but can I ask for no personal comments, please, on any of the applicants? Okay, thank you.
Good day. My name is Rick Parsons. I'm the author of the Western Longville Walking Guide and a close neighbour to Western Covert. This application feels somewhat like Groundhog Day, but I'm not Bill Murray, and sadly there isn't a comic ending here. During the period of unauthorised use that you've already heard about, I was developing the walking guide for the parish, and on such walk I had a near miss with a car that still scars my dog George to this day. A car came speeding around the junction between Field Road and Morton Lane where the two roads join. There is a bend in this road with restricted views on both ways, which wasn't, I would say, shown quite adequately on the pictures earlier. The driver had to take avoiding action to avoid me and Miss George, proceeding at pace to the swimming pool entrance, which at that time was on Morton Lane. Whilst I recognise that accidents may happen and can happen in any location at any time, this reinforced to me how unsuitable this location is for regular access by users who are not from our locale, I'll cover more of that in a moment, and who are driving on unfamiliar roads and where their priority is meeting a booking schedule. I'm here to represent the views of a number of neighbours along Morton Lane who quite frankly are frustrated at much repeated, almost identical attempts spanning 6 years to change the use of a family home to a facility which in our view greatly extends adversely the impact on our neighbours and the environment to provide a use that was never intended. We would like to express our sympathies, however, with yourselves and thank you as teams who no doubt face challenges for suspect retrospective approvals repeatedly across the district. With this matter, residents have grown tired of the applicant's repeated submissions and escalations, which even now includes additional probably spurious emphasis on the use of the facility supporting special needs children, no doubt to elicit a sympathetic vote of approval or as a community asset providing employment. I would simply question why it's taken 5 iterations to now make these points and must therefore cast doubt on the credibility or indeed the motive for this inclusion. It disturbs me to say it, but maybe there is a wider rationale for using this argument for a longer purpose. All formal departments have recommended refusal of the commercialisation of this site. I'd like to raise two additional points. Firstly, the idea of this as a community asset. I would question which community is being referred to, because even as a close neighbour, I didn't recognise Mr. Pimlott until I happened to be stood behind him in the queue coming in earlier today, or his family, or any of the party that he's representing. Moreover, the messages of support that I've read on the planning portal plus on the SPA Facebook sites are names that I simply don't recognise, so it's probably a little disingenuous to suggest this as a community asset. Secondly, having operated for 20 months without approval and at odds to restriction orders from yourselves, we do not comprehend or countenance how someone might seemingly ignore these instructions. It's therefore strongly suspected that, given the previous history, this application will be used as a lever to extend the use of the pool, having created a precedence for retrospective planning approvals. Like Groundhog Day, the process and cost will recommence. We're fatigued, nevertheless committed to ensuring that our objections continue to be heard, and truly hope that our interpretation of the latest inclusion of the SENS community is an aberration.
Thank you. Do you want to carry on?
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Howie. I'm a resident on Morton Lane, Western Longville. Firstly, I would like to start by saying how exhausting, frustrating, stressful and time-consuming these continued repeat applications from Western Covent have been for myself and other local residents of Western Longville. I'm in disbelief that after having had 5 previous applications refused, this application has come to committee. Our local parish council has objected. Highways have stated the position of this facility is totally unsuitable for the surrounding infrastructure. It's also been objected to by local councillor Peter Borman and many local residents, and last but not least, the planning officer. It seems any support has come from the general public that don't live anywhere near the area and seem to be friends of the applicant or members of the church he's affiliated with. The applicant went ahead and opened a business, taking bookings, making money, advertising his business on Facebook and putting up large advertising boards as far as Fakenham, all without planning permission being granted. Why the applicant feels that he is above following the same procedure as everyone else is beyond me. While he was allowing people to use the use of the pool, even though he had been served an enforcement notice to cease trading, which he did ignore for 20 months, local people had to put up with school buses going back and forth to the pool. This bus passed my house directly and even turned up my drive where it was too wide to allow vehicles coming from the opposite direction to pass. Also, numerous cars would attend the pool, sometimes up to 5 at a time for the same booking, where people would meet up. He had mentioned that only small parties would be allowed to book, but who would police that? Both roads leading to Western Covert are single lane only. They are already used as a rat run. These lanes are used by walkers, dog walkers, horse riders, and it is a cycle route, as well as a beautiful country setting with lots of wildlife. The applicant has stated that there are at least 8 passing places, but this is not the case. Vehicles have literally just ploughed into the countryside verges to get past and caused unsightly damage to them. Obviously, this is caused by general traffic, but the extra vehicles to and from the pool on a daily basis would lead to making this a whole lot worse, especially during the winter months when the roads that surround Western Covert all suffer extremely bad flooding. The applicant will also have you believe that their lanes are perfectly safe and there has been no traffic accidents. This is completely untrue. I have witnessed numerous accidents and there even has been a fatality. You can see these all listed online. Morton Lane has many blind bends and I myself have had numerous near misses from oncoming vehicles. Dog walkers literally have to jump into hedges to avoid being hit. There are no footpaths and no form of lighting whatsoever. I'm afraid the applicant, if he gets planning, it will be the start for him to progress his business into a glamping site, which I know he's keen to do. What will stop him from just going ahead once again without planning permission? Western Longville is such a beautiful, friendly and community-spirited place and is completely ignorant to all the surrounding residents' feelings. If he is so intent on building his spa and leisure centre, why doesn't he move to a more suitable site? Please can you refuse this application once and for all? Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to carry on?
Hello, my name is Sally Butler and I want to speak about the daily reality of traffic in our village. Western Longville is already under severe pressure from rat running, and the congestion it causes creates real conflict and frustration, with drivers shouting at each other when the lanes become blocked. It has become genuinely difficult to simply move around our own community. Many drivers ignore the access only sign and race down a single track lane to bypass the slow traffic heading towards Marle Hill, a lane that also provides pedestrian access, including children, to our village hall. Our verges are constantly crushed. We have no bus service, no street lighting, and only a few metres of pavement. These are all narrow rural lanes, which were never designed for heavy through traffic. We already have to plan our journeys to avoid rat running times, and at peak periods I can barely get out of my own driveway. We worry about how much worse this will become once the A47 dualling is completed. At times, Western Longville feels more like Brands Hatch than a rural village. So I'm asking, please do not approve anything that will attract even more traffic. Many of us enjoy walking, as has already been said, and the one public footpath we do have is accessed via both Morton Lane and Field Road. When a vehicle passes, we have to step into the hedgerow just to stay safe. In my 30 years living here, I have never seen the applicant at a single village event, yet he calls himself community focused. Many residents would say his actions suggest otherwise. He certainly didn't show much regard for the village when he ran pool bookings for almost 2 years without permission, despite the council stepping in and residents repeatedly raising concerns. And these constant copy and paste applications, they show the same determination to keep pushing until someone somewhere eventually gives in. Unfortunately for him, our village has a very firm no means no. To make it clear, we are an inclusive community. Our village hall was deliberately designed to be fully accessible for less mobile individuals. And our village cinema makes provision for people with limited mobility and learning disabilities and is regularly used by them. Inclusivity is part of how we operate as a village, and we greatly value it. But inclusivity relies on safety, and right now our rural roads are already struggling. This proposal would make the problem worse. Please protect our village and reject the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification from speakers needed? Peter.
Thank you for your submissions. I was now point the first lady who spoke, because she seemed to have an idea of the number of vehicle movements. I mean, is this, what's the worst time? Is it weekends or is it every day of the week? I mean, it sounded quite dramatic what you were saying about the amount of minibuses that were coming along there. Thank you.
Sure. Are you asking generally in the village? So we suffer rat running from the 1067, which is near Great Witchingham Way, I don't know if you know it, to the A47. And if any of you, and I'm sure some of you have driven from the 1067 to the A47, at the moment is severely flooded. On Marle Hill, there's massive floods. So all of the lanes coming into Western Covert, where this application is proposed, are flooded about 6 months of the year. We have people breaking down in the floods, and most of us have to buy four-wheel drives just to live in our homes, to access our homes during the winter. So the worst times are the commuting times. Then this proposal that we're all very, very worried about is the A47. When those works complete in the next 12 months, we've been told by Norfolk County Council we'll have at least another 6,000 traffic movements a day, maybe up to 10,000 a day. So they're consulting with us at the moment until January. And the proposals are for the consultation that we have road narrowing chicanes, speed reductions to try and get people to use other roads. But of course, Ringland and Hockering, they suffered the same problems. Taverham, Helsden, you will understand what we're suffering. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be the infrastructure without that Western link there.
Thank you. Perhaps you could just say how many of these traffic movements do you think are down to this recreation facility, shall we say?
Whilst it was operating unlawfully, there were a lot. I've got photographs of up to 10 vehicles parked in a line. There have been parties late at night. There's been noise, completely unregulated. It was advertised from first thing in the morning, I think about 6 in the morning, with the last bookings at about 10:30 at night, meaning that people maybe were leaving around midnight. I think those were the times from memory. He since then reduced them down when he was told by the council that basically he'd been clocked for his behaviour. But the signs were up at Aylsham, Fakenham, down the A47. They appeared everywhere. Big signs were again without planning permission. And of course, the internet is a global advertising tool. So none of these people were local, maybe some from another village, but most of the people, and certainly the supporting letters that have been sent in are virtually on a template, seemingly from the same organisation, all from outside of our parish.
We're talking about the number of cars, not the number of letters going in, okay?
Well, the cars are coming from outside our parish, that's the point. None of us are walking to this facility.
Thank you. Any other questions for the speakers? All right. Can I please ask you to return to your seats, please? We're going to move on to supporters. I have Christian Fox, Michelle Robinson, Steve Morstan and Les Brown. And again, you have 3 minutes and 45 seconds each because there are 4 of you. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Mr. Kristen Fox, to clarify that. And during the lockdown, I did nearly lose my home and my business because I lost access to a swimming pool. So yes, I did lose everything, and it's nice to be reminded of that. And I've tried to rebuild, and I do specialise in special needs swimming, special needs advocacy. It's what I do and have done for nearly 20 years. And I'm not here with any interest in the owner of the pool or anybody else other than speaking for a community that I advocate for every single day of my working life, which is 6 days a week and about 12 hours a day. We are in crisis. There aren't 9 pools, there aren't accessible pools, there aren't places with hoists, there aren't places with parking. Private pools are perfect because of that temperature. The public pools, Riverside, Dereham Leisure Centre, Helsden High School pool, they all run at 28 degrees, which doesn't meet the sensory needs of the people that I look after and that I work with. It's documented by Swim England and the Swimming Teachers Association, the temperatures that you should operate a pool within that are therapeutic, and 31 degrees is where you start, and upwards, anything above that is brilliant. The community I work with, the young children at the Hall School, those kids at Dereham, at the same schools there, at Harford Manor, they don't have access to these facilities. The Hewitt School's now shutting its pool. Langley Prep have just now closed to outside hirers, so another colleague of mine in the swimming world has lost her pool hire for her inclusive sessions. The only reason I'm here now is because I recommend to my families where they can go to take their children to be able to access the right kind of environment, somewhere that meets their sensory needs, that doesn't overload them. Unlike a room like this is just an absolute nightmare with the lighting. It's too bright, it's too harsh, it's too loud. the only pools that are consistent are local pools, little tiny private ones. I'm off to one in Hoverton straight from here for my Wednesday's end session. We need pools like this, whether it's this one or other ones. We need to be able to have access. I particularly like this one because the only thing it doesn't have is a hoist, and it's the first person who owns a pool has said, I'd look at putting a hoist in for you. That I have so many swimmers I've not been able to get into the water since before the lockdown because we do not have accessibility. I can't take them to a public pool because it's too cold. It's detrimental to their well-being. You can talk to any hydrotherapist at the hospital, which I do. You can talk to organisations like Sensei, which I do, where they have specialists in this area. So I'm just here to talk for the people that don't have a voice, that don't have access, that are in our community. And with the number of school pools that are closing and the restricted access to facilities, I'm not asking for a lot, just a little bit of time to get these kids and young adults and vulnerable people back in. I could go on about access for the elderly. I've got two fabulous people that come to me in their late 80s that have both got new knees and hips, again, that can't use a traditional pool because they don't have access. They've got ladders. A pool with Roman steps, which you can go down with a handrail, is a godsend. It's what's recommended by the specialists. So I'm just asking you to enable the disabled rather than disable the disabled.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I'll move on to the next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Robinson, Director of Pre-Planning at Canham Consulting. We've been looking at the transport and highways to support the application. The pool was previously open to the public, first being opened in September 22. At the time, the applicant did not know the planning was required for public use. The pool closed end of May 24. The pool was used by the public for private hire for 20 months without any traffic incidents and behavioural complaints. The proposed development will not have a severe impact on the local road network and minimal impact on highway safety. There's no connected issues when the pool operated from 22 to 24. At that time, there were 48 slots a week, 8 slots a day. The impact at that time was 4% across the week on base traffic flows, and the average use was half that. There were an average of 62 vehicles associated with the 48 slots. The current proposal is for 24 slots a week. There'll be a maximum of 1 vehicle allowed per booking with half-an-hour gap between the slots, so vehicles entering and exiting the site will not meet on the local highway network. There'll be a maximum of 6 slots a day with a maximum of 6 vehicles a day. This results in a 3% increase a day or under 4% over the week on base flows. This cannot be considered significant as it's under the 5% considered generally significant and there's no HGVs. With 6 vehicles a day, this is within daily fluctuations of base traffic. Again, how that's considered significant is against highway general terms. The proposed slots for private hire as part of this application are 50% less than the previous use. We would consider community benefits and minimal harm on the road network given the proposed use is less than previous use and further mitigations provided. The concerns do not reflect the modest scale and controlled nature of the proposed use, nor the mitigation measures already built into the proposals. The pool is not a commercial leisure centre. Community access will be limited, scheduled, pre-booked, ensuring that visitor numbers remain modest and predictable. They will be low and manageable. The controlled timetable disperses arrivals and keeps numbers low. There's no proposals to alter the existing access. Vehicle movements will be significantly below thresholds considered significant for highway safety and severe impact. This project incorporates sustainability principles. The pool reduces wider travel demand on residents who might have to drive more distance to further facilities. The pool is considered to provide community benefit, having been used by 36 families located within a 3-mile radius of the pool. It's a valuable local amenity that provides access to clean, well-maintained swimming facilities without the crowds of public pools, healthy recreation, social interaction and improved health and well-being for children, older residents and those with limited mobility. These benefits are substantial while the associated transport impacts remain minimal. Conditions could be imposed to require a booking management plan with capped visitor and vehicle numbers, a limit on operating hours to prevent any concentration of vehicle movements. The proposed use delivers meaningful community and wellbeing benefits with controlled access, modest usage and clear mitigation. The objections raised do not outweigh the benefits of the scheme. On appeal against the 5 glamping pods, the inspector stated, although the existing operation on the highway network is inconvenient for users, I am not persuaded that it is inherently dangerous. NPPF 1116 states development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. We do not have a severe impact. NPPF 1110 states opportunities to maximise sustainable transport solutions will vary between urban and rural areas, and this should be taken into account in decision making. With the rural location, the opportunities to maximise sustainable travel are limited and should be considered against the benefits the scheme brings to users, many who are disabled and can only access via private vehicles. There are applications for pools in other areas, such as
I'm sorry, you've had your time. Thank you. The next speaker go, please.
Is that on? Ah, good. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chair, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Steve, and for transparency, I am Trevor's son-in-law. I first met the applicant, my father-in-law, 39 years ago. Trevor and Joyce are two of the kindest and most community-minded people you will ever meet. Joyce pioneered the nursery serving the Heartsease estate, which has served hundreds of families and still goes strong today. From this meeting, I will go to the church which they led for 2 decades, to a showing of the wonder, specifically for children with special needs and their families. There will be 900 people attending. The accusation that this is a temporary thing that they're doing is just not true. It's who they are. But this is a planning decision and comes down to a single question. Do the transport impacts outweigh the community benefits? NPPF provides a very clear test. Development should only be refused on highway grounds if the impact is unacceptable or the cumulative impact is severe. The planning inspector assessing a previous application for glamping pods concluded it was not unsafe and certainly not severe. It was inconvenient. Therefore, the current proposal for only 24 slots, strictly 1 vehicle per session, must reasonably be considered a minor inconvenience, especially in a rural area where car use is both expected and recognised by the NPPF. Are our roads the possession of those privileged to live in this beautiful part of South Broadland, or are they public roads? The applicant is willing to dedicate half of the slots, 12 per week, exclusively for vulnerable users with special needs. In addition, 36 of existing users live within the 3-mile radius. Therefore, surely this application directly serves both the local community and some of its vulnerable families. Maybe some of you have a family member with additional needs or disabilities, as we do. And if you don't, I wish you could see the joy on the faces of the children, the relief on the carers when they experience the dignity this unique facility gives to people so often excluded. So the decision before you is this: minor inconvenience from 1 additional vehicle per hour against a life-changing benefit for some of the most vulnerable people in our community. Trevor is happy for any conditions to be applied which forbid any future development. That is not what he wants to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's go to the last speaker, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. My name is Les Brown, planning and development consultant. I hold a postgraduate diploma in environmental planning. Today, my statement will be very brief. You've received detailed representations from previous submissions in support of this proposal, which I don't intend to repeat, rather provide a brief summary. The main issues here relate to how planning policy is applied in terms of highway safety and sustainability. Most local plan policy takes its steer from National Planning Policy Framework, NPPF. As a consequence, the material impact test, or in the case of the NPPF, severe impact, provides a degree of flexibility, a case-by-case judgment for local authorities in determining an application having regard to the whole range of issues, including highway matters, and the degree to which the development impacts those interests. These interests are often finely balanced. In this case, officers are faced with an objection from the Highway Authority, who in the past have had a more lenient approach to previous developments in this locality. As with the Highway Authority, local residents who have objected are consultees in this process. As a consequence, officers have a difficult task in assessing the balance between conflicting views. In this regard, I consider unreasonable weight has been given to what are insignificant highway constraints. Regarding the proposal for consideration today, I would submit that the issue is a balance between social and economic benefit against any perceived highway safety or highway sustainability issues. Based on the other supporting submissions, there is clearly significant local benefit through the provision of a facility which not only meets a public demand, but also a facility for the disadvantaged and disabled, which far outweigh the suggested highway safety and sustainability issues. The insignificant additional vehicles used in the local highway network likely to be generated by this revised proposal cannot be regarded as creating a material detrimental impact. Indeed, in considering the advice contained within the NPPF and associated local planning policy in terms of highway safety and the sustainability of development cannot be regarded as having a serious or severe impact, and therefore I would recommend or request that planning permission be granted. As you've also heard, the applicant is willing to accept conditions which will control the intensity of the use in accordance with what we have been describing today. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the committee need anything clarified from the speakers? Nigel.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The third speaker, forgive me, I didn't catch your name. You referenced one vehicle at a time. I'm looking at the website for Western Leisure Pool and Spa, and it says maximum adults per session 8 and up to 8 children. I fail to see how, if you had a full session of that you would actually get them all in one car.
That's an old website. If you actually try to click on it, you would see it's not functional. Well, you wouldn't, we haven't, nobody has booked slots since the last enforcement notice.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting anybody has booked, but what I'm saying is that's on the website. It says up to 8 adults and up to 8 children. But we were told that there would only be one vehicle at a time. And if you went ahead with this, you cannot get 8 adults and 8 children in one car. I would predict that there would be at least 4 or 5 vehicles at any one time.
We'll change it.
Okay, there's no more questions. Would you like to go back to your seats, please? Thank you. We have a representation from Councillor Bullman, which Tracy's going to read out.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a representation from Councillor Peter Bullman, local member. So as ward member for Great Witchingham, please note my formal objection to the above mentioned retrospective planning application. I would have very much wished to be in attendance in person, but I'm unable to do so due to the very short notice of the application's inclusion on this agenda. I may add that I find this particularly surprising, as I had only asked for the case to be determined by committee if the officer was minded to approve this application, which clearly isn't the case, and I see little rationale for the item to be considered. Be that as it may, my reasons for objecting are as follows. This main substance of this application has already been rejected by the Planning Department and has been the subject of a review by the Planning Inspectorate when it was also refused. I see no grounds that would significantly affect this decision and ask that this be taken into consideration. Certainly, the inclusion of certain very limited employment opportunities associated with the development are so minimal that they can be disregarded, and in any case, if they were significant, it would only add to the traffic problems. 2. The issue of traffic problems in the area is well known, and these have been exacerbated by the withdrawal of the Western Link Road. To add to these problems with a further development would be unacceptable, and it is reassuring that Norfolk Highways do not support this development. Certainly, the site is not a suitable location for the proposed development in that there is no access by any sustainable means of travel, and it adversely affects highway safety through increasing traffic movements within the parish via narrow country lanes without identified passing places. Without question, access and egress would also present excessive problems, even allowing for certain modifications. 3. In short, I believe that members of the Planning Committee should accept the officer's recommendations for rejection of the application, as the case is without merit. Councillor Peter Bowman, thank you.
Right, we go to general discussion. Again, I am quite torn with this. I do understand the need for provision for SEN children, but again, we have to consider the representation we have from our from highways. The recommendation is for refusal on highway safety and transport sustainability. Does anyone wish to comment on that? Eleanor first, then Joe.
All right. Thank you, Chair. I mean, actually, I think this is the first time I've been at Planning Committee and had so many people speak in favour of an application and so many people speak against. So it clearly is, an important issue for the local community. The planning balance is quite interesting. So the nature of this proposal is quite reasonable in principle, and it does provide potentially a social amenity. I think it does potentially do that. But it will clearly have an unacceptable impact on the transport network. So we have to take into account the views again of County Highways Department. They are statutory consultees, and it seems absolutely clear. I mean, they have made very detailed comments in their objections to this proposal. So I don't see how we could, in terms of the planning balance, do anything other than refuse this application on the grounds of damage, as it were, highway safety and impact on the highway network. And we have heard quite a lot about that from local residents. I don't live in that area, and it does sound as though it really, really is a problem. I just have one question for the planning officers on this. So my general feeling is I would decide to refuse this application and go with the officer's recommendation. But my question is, similar applications have come, I think it's up to 6 times to our planning department, which seem to be actually quite similar, because the impact on the highways is the same in every case, whatever application comes through. And this is taking time up of the planning department. It's come to committee, it's taking our time up, and it sounds as though it's taking quite a lot of people's time up at home looking at all these applications. So the question is, can we now place what we don't know what we're going to decide at committee, but if we do decide to go with the officer recommendation, can we put any restriction to prevent further applications coming forward? We've already had 6. Is there, we don't want to be here having the 50th application coming in the future.
Good point, thank you, Eleanor. The provisions that the local authority have in terms of that challenge is the power to decline to determine a planning application. But there's quite a high bar to that. So if it was the exact same application, we could decline to determine it. Because obviously what has happened, my understanding is there have been slight changes in what's been submitted each time in terms of the numbers being proposed. So I think, we certainly would take some legal advice, but I think that would be the response in terms of they have been suitably different, that we would have to accept them. But where we were to receive the same application, then we would be in a territory to decline to determine the application, which means we don't have to accept the application, and there's no right of appeal on those applications.
Thank you very much, Chair. I live fairly close to Western Longville, and I'm very familiar with all those lanes around there. The road network around Western Longville is absolutely shocking. Mole Hill, gets flooded in deep water near the bottom of the Fakenham Road, and the road surface is worn away, and it is like, honestly, driving in a third world country. I completely agree with what the officer is saying. This certainly doesn't comply with TS3, and I would like to propose that we go with officer recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, do you want me to read the reasons for refusal out? They're quite long. They're all on page 201 of your papers. Take it as read? Okay, right. Go to the recommendation for refusal. All those in favour of refusal, please. Show your hand. Thank you. That's carried unanimous. Thank you. We're going to have another 5-minute toilet break, please.